Thank you all again for joining us for the latest in our best practices series for Microsoft CRM. This is best practices for JavaScript. And I am Jim Manning. I'm the Microsoft CRM Solutions Specialist here at Affiliated. But the person you've really come to hear today is Stephen Jennings. Stephen's a senior implementer here on our Microsoft CRM team at Affiliated. Our agenda for today calls for just brief introductions, we promise, then a little bit of overview, JavaScript, how, what, and why folks use it within Microsoft CRM. We're going to talk about the JavaScript object model, common JavaScript methods, using web resources, and an introduction to the form editor and form events, and then Q&A at the end. Time permitting, we'll stay on as long as we can up to 1 o'clock and answer any and all of your questions. But as I mentioned, you have the ability to enter questions into the panel on the right side of your screen from GoToMeeting, and I will do my best to field them and relay them to Stephen, who can actually answer them as we go along. But first, a little bit about the Affiliated Resource Group. I know we have a lot of existing clients on the meeting today, so you don't need an introduction. But for those of you who haven't become acquainted with us, we are one of the leading Microsoft CRM partners in the nation, in this region, the Midwest region, certainly. Affiliated has been in business for a very, very long time for somebody who does what we do, technology services. And that's 17 years. And we've been working with the Microsoft CRM application for as long as it has been in existence, which is actually more than 8 years now. So I need to update this slide. Along the way, we have won all of the major awards that Microsoft offers to somebody who's in this business of Microsoft CRM implementations, including Partner of the Year, and more recently, we re-attained Gold certification, which was not very meaningful a while back, but Microsoft has done a good job of tightening up the qualification requirements for Gold partner status, and Affiliated qualified very, very early on. Let me introduce my colleague to you, Stephen Jennings. Stephen has been with the Affiliated Resource Group for the past 2 years. Wow, has it been that long already?
Yeah.
We brought Stephen up from Texas to join our team, where he'd been a CRM administrator in a production system environment, and he has 4 years of Microsoft CRM implementation experience total across version 4 and 2011. His background, though, is as an application developer, so he actually has 8 years of experience in .NET development and presumably JavaScript development as well. And here is his email address if you have any very specific technical questions you would like to pose of him. I'll offer my contact information as well toward the end. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Stephen Jennings.
All right, thank you, Jim. Okay, so everyone, appreciate you coming. Today's focus on JavaScript is going to be basically at a beginner to about a mid-level as far as the topics that we discussed today. So we're going to talk about how you can use JavaScript in your CRM, why you would use it, and some basic information about it. At the end of this, if you find out you're interested in going to the next level of JavaScript, again, please let us know. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But today's focus, we'll kind of get you up to speed on how to use it. Okay, we're about to launch a poll. So if you guys can answer the poll real quick, we'll get going.
This will help us to identify who's on the webcast so we can sort of gauge your technical acumen. If we've got a whole lot of end users, some of this material might be a little over your head, so we just wanted to gain an appreciation for who's attended today. And it looks like, as we suspected, we are heavily represented today by administrators. So you can see about 2/3 of you are CRM system administrators. Okay, that's it.
All right, so again, with JavaScript, why would you use JavaScript? So JavaScript in CRM can be very useful, and it's strictly as far as the client side. It could be useful in ways of hiding and showing fields. It could be used as making things required when you hit a certain level. It allows you to get the value of something in CRM and move it across. So we're going to go through some of these examples, and at the end I will have 2 JavaScript files that I will be happy to share with anybody who requests it. I will also be giving one at the very end. We'll go over it, but it's the phone number formatting JavaScript that can be used all over CRM. For those of you who use CRM, know that there is no way to automatically format your phone numbers. So I've provided a common JavaScript file to kind of allow you to be used in all the entities, and I'll show you how that works. So if you're interested in utilizing it, it works great out of the box, and if you need tweaking, we can always show you.
I'm interested in utilizing it. Why don't we deploy that thing internally?
Looks like
numbers are a mess.
We'll be doing that internally as well. All right. So to kind of describe about the object layout. Now, to do JavaScript in CRM, you don't really need to understand this to its full, but this is how the object is laid out with CRM. For anybody who've done JavaScript in the old 4.0 version, you can see that this is completely different. New syntax, new language, new everything. But basically, the way Microsoft has done it, you've got your header record, so you got your XMR page. So that's actually the page you're looking at in CRM. Then you can do the UI. Then you've got your content, your data, and your UI, so that would be the next level. So we're pretty much going to be focusing on either the data side or the UI side today. But then it goes over here where you can do the tabs, the items, the controls, the attributes. And again, we'll go through all this example so you kind of understand what I'm talking about. All right. So then the next thing is talking about the reference. So what are the 3 main topics? And again, you've got your XMR page, which is your hierarchy. Then you've got your context, which provides the methods to retrieve the information specific to an organization. Then you have your data entities, which provide the entity objects and the way of getting it. Now the entities are going to be your fields, which, custom fields that we create or system views that are already there. Then you can actually do UI stuff. So if you need to control tabs and hide and show fields, that would be UI based. So you got a collections. And again, this may, if it gets too technical, again, don't worry about it. We'll get into examples, and I know you'll be able to see it and understand it. Now over here, these are common CRM JavaScript methods. Now, we will be providing a best practice sheet. Within this best practice sheet, you will get all of these common JavaScript methods. So you will have it as a reference. You can use it. Now, there are a lot more, but these are going to be your most common. So we'll use it as the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your JavaScript code will use this. But if you need to take it to that 20%, we can always do another webinar or a class about doing the advanced JavaScript. So you got your basic ones. How do I get a value? How do I get the value of something? How do I set a value? So again, the way the first line reads, you got to get attribute. What's the name of it? And I'll show you how to get that. And then it's just get the value. So I'm setting it to a variable. So the var is what's called a variable. The next one talks about set the value. So we're just basically taking a value and setting it. Over here talks about hiding and showing tabs, which is very important, especially if you do divisions and you want to hide and show a tab based off division. So if you have 10 fields in a tab, you don't have to hide all 10 fields. You just have to hide the tab, and it will hide the fields underneath it. So it's just true, false. Over here you've got to fire an on-change event. So you can actually fire something to do on-change, and we'll talk about what the on-change event means. Is when you're going through CRM and you're tabbing through, because a lot of times when you do data entry, you're going to enter something tab, you can do a fire on change of that tab. And that's really what that phone number editing is going to do, is when you make the phone number and you tab it, it will automatically change it on the fly for you. The next one is get the value of a pick list. So in CRM, they're called option set values, but it's basically a pick list. This allows you to get the text of it, or you can also do the value of it. And over here, it talks about setting the requirements level. So within CRM, you can change the requirements level pretty easily, but how do you change it on the fly when you're hitting a certain criteria? And a lot of it deals with like sales stages and opportunities. So for example, if sales stage 1 and 2, you don't really want to set certain fields required, but as soon as you hit level 3, management needs that extra fields for reporting. You want to set that required. So you can actually dynamically change the requirement level on the fly when a user selects the new drop-down list. And then once the user selects it to level 3, they try to hit the save button. They can't hit the save button until they fill in those key fields that we've already set as required. So that's how we do here. We will set the requirement level. None means no. Required means they have to do it before they hit the save button. And recommended is, it's an optional field. It puts that blue plus in there. It doesn't prompt them. It doesn't do anything. Normally, when I do my presentations and when I do my implementations, I really don't use the recommended. But if you want to, it is there for your availability. All right, these are a few more. So how do the next one is update a read-only field. So in CRM, we can update fields that are configurable change. But what happens if you have a read-only field? Over here, this will allow you to overwrite a read-only field. So when we start talking about JavaScript, I always put this after any time I do a set value. So if I'm setting a value right here, I guarantee you I will put a set submit always afterwards, even if the field is read-only or not read-only. And the reason why is because in your JavaScript code, if it's a read-only, for the only way for you to overwrite that, you have to have the set submit always. If it's not read-only and if it's something they can change, it doesn't hurt. But if you go 2 months later and decide, oh wait, I need to make this a read-only field, and you forget to do this in your JavaScript code, it won't work anymore. So best practices is always add this, so whether or not you decide to use it, you're safe. Or if you have a developer working on it and then you have an administrator doing it, 2 separate people, they may not talk to each other saying, look, I'm going to add this as a read-only field. Would that cause a problem? They may not know. So from a development point of view, always use the set submit always. Over here, you can actually set the next one is set the focus. If you want to set the focus of an individual field, then you can do that, because out of the box, it will start in the very top left corner. But that's not the first thing you want it to do. You may want it to set a different field. You can actually override that. Over here, the next one is disable and enable. Let's say you want to hide and show a field. And I actually have an example. This will show it. So you can actually hide and show fields dynamically. And that's what this one will for, true, false. Stop and on-save events. You can actually stop an on-save event if certain criteria are not done. I did this once for one client that required that a competitor be selected for an opportunity before they can actually classify it as a one list. So I used this piece to actually find out, do they have a competitor? If they don't, prompt them, let them know that they can't save it. So you can actually force them to not save it if certain criteria don't match. The next one is security roles. So let's say you want to get a list of what their security role is because you want to hide and show fields based off security roles. This will get you all the user roles. And then over here, the next one is actually getting the GUID. Now, a GUID is a unique identifier that defines all entities in CRM. And it's a 32-bit character or 32-bit line of information. And this basically is a way of getting it. You may or may not use it, but again, it's a common function. All right. So the next one, we're going to talk about the best practice sheet. Over here, we've got our best practice sheet. So again, this is what we're going to provide all of you, which talks about the common methods, debugging, how to debug JavaScript, because as we know, when debugging JavaScript is a pain. Microsoft in IE 8 has a nice feature. By hitting F12, it gets you to the debugger, which is very nice, or you can always do alerts. The next section talks about the events. Within CRM, you can do an onload event, which is onload. So as soon as the page loads, I want it to do X, Y, and Z. On save, as soon as I hit the save button, I want it to do, D, E, and F. Then the next one is field on change events. When a field changes, I want it to do something on the event. I don't want to wait till it saves. I don't want to wait till it loads. I want it instantaneously. You can do it on the on-change event. And then, of course, over here, we've got a miscellaneous advice over here. And it may be hard to see, but what it's talking about, and I'll show this in the bigger screen, is when you're putting a function into the event, do not put the brackets at the end. There is a bug in CRM, and it's been out since the version that basically since 2011 came out, that if you have a bracket after your function, which is common that a lot of developers do, it will remove your ribbon bar. And I will actually demonstrate that so you can see. It blows away your ribbon bar. The only way to get it back is to go back and edit it. So it's one of those things that when you start doing this, and if you accidentally get rid of your ribbon bar, you'll know exactly what you did. The first time you do it, it's a little shocker, especially when we figured it out accidentally. So we'll show it to you so you can kind of see and steer away from that. So again, the common methods, the debugging, the form events, and the form event miscellaneous advice. There's also something we need to talk about. This is brand new. It came out with a new rollout in 10. So Microsoft recently patched their online clients to 10, most of them. If you've also done your on-premise to 10, there is a bug in the JavaScript editing. If you are working with JavaScript files and you cut and paste that information into it, it will prompt you with a warning that says you've exceeded your 2,000 character limit. That is a known bug. Microsoft is working on it, and they'll have to send out a patch. But in the meantime, if you just click cancel and then OK, you are safe. But if you click OK, it will truncate your file, and then you're going to be missing key fields in that JavaScript file, which will then blow it up, and it won't work. So it's a known bug. Microsoft is working on a patch, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks they'll get it. But the workaround, just hit cancel, and you're good to go. All right. So the JavaScript examples. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to log in to our site, which I probably should have had up already, but hey, just take a second. Okie dokie. So we're actually going to do some demos. I'm going to show you what's going on within CRM. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the leads. Now to do JavaScript editing, you have to be either a system administrator or a configurator within the environment, because to access the JavaScript library files you have to get to the customize field within CRM. Standard users can't do it. So if you are tasked to be the new person to add JavaScript to your file, you will get elevated roles within your CRM environment. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is how do I get a CRM file into the system. There are two ways to do it. So if you go under settings and then customizations, and you go under customize the system, it will take us to a section within CRM. That will talk about the entities, and over here that will talk about web resources. So CRM is technically a web resource. You have also other options within web resources. You can do HTML, CS files, JScript, which is the JavaScript file. You can do Silverlight applications or images. Because in an online environment in CRM, you do not have access to put this in a folder or a directory, you actually have to upload it as a web resource, and then you can utilize that information. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically create new, and then we're going to name our web resource. What I always do is I name it based off the entity. And for those of you who are seeing this and have done CRM 4.0 code, the changes that they've done is they've actually created a library that can be used everywhere. So when I demonstrate, in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, the phone number screen, I'm going to create one file that's a common file that can be used across leads, accounts, and contacts. So in the old way, Microsoft had it where you had to cut and paste into every single phone number field. Well, what if you had to make a change? You had to remember all 15 places of where you had to move this. CRM has created a way of a library resources where you can utilize it and create functions that can be reused. So basically what I always do, I always call it lead, so whatever the name of the entity, or prospect if you have it named that. We'll call it library, if I can spell, and then main. And then again, what's the display name? So lead, library main. And then if you want to, you can add a little detailed description about what it is. Then over here, we're going to change, it's going to say JavaScript. And then of course your language is English. You have an option of using the text editor, or you can actually upload a file. Now the file that I'm using is one that I've already created. And it's basically a file that I use because a lot of times when I write JavaScript file, I keep it on my desktop. The reason why is because if someone makes a change, I want to know what the latest version is, and it's also a great way for backup. If you also decide to have a source control system, you can actually cut and paste your JavaScript file into a source control system like Team Foundation or Star Team or whatever source control you use. It's basically a text file that you can use in there, and from a programming point of view, you can check it out, check it in, you know where your code is, and it's a great way of doing it. It'll always be in Microsoft, but if there's ever a problem, you've got a backup of it. So I've got a file that I've already pre-written, and then we'll kind of go over each one of these events that happens. I can upload it. So I can browse to it and it will automatically upload it, or I can click on the text editor and I can actually write JavaScript code in the text editor. Normally I don't like to do this because the font is extremely tiny. It's very hard to see and it's very difficult. So a lot of times I will use a outside editor. Note++ is one. You can use Visual Studio. There's other free JavaScript editors. Now it doesn't do the syntax for you for CRM related, but it does make the font bigger and it does do some color coding because it truly is JavaScript code. I'm using Jim's laptop, so I don't have a cool editor, so I can't really show that to you, so I'm sorry. But I'll show you a notepad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste, and then I can just basically paste the information in here. And it will all be in here. I can hit OK, and it will basically automatically upload it in the system, or I can go to the browse and upload it. So what happens is now that I've done this, it's created this new web resource library called lead library main. Always starts with the word new. Anything in CRM that you do custom will always start with the word new. And then over here it actually gives you a URL. So it's a dynamic URL based off your CRM environment. So I'm going to save and close. So then I'm basically, now that I can see in my web resource, I've got a new library. There's the name of it. There's the JavaScript file. And it's customizable. Unmanaged basically means it's something I can change later. If it was managed, it would be locked down. I can't change it. So always leave it as an unmanaged resource file. Okay. So then what we'll do is now that we have our web resource here, I can hit save and close. I can go to my leads, and I'm going to add it. Just because you add that web resource to CRM does not mean it knows where to go. You have to actually tell it where to go, because it's now just a library and it basically needs to be told where I want to go. So the next section we're going to do is we're going to go to our leads. And again, you have to be a system administrator to see this Customize tab. Once you see the Customize tab, you can go to the form. And then once you're on the form, you can then add that library to the form. So each form. This also works if you have multiple forms. So for those who are unaware, CRM allows you to have multiple forms. You can also have multiple JavaScript files to different forms. So if you had two separate forms, the most common one is government and non-government. Government has this form. You can actually create a library for the government side or a library for the non-government side, and they can be used differently because each form is unique. Honestly, I use this as a development task for my online clients. If I have to do a lot of changes to the form and they're already live in the environment, I will actually create a brand new form. I'll do my JavaScript against that form. Then I can let a few people test the form to make sure it's okay, and then I can copy and paste and move it into the primary form. So it allows me to basically create a testing stage area where it won't affect the standard users, and then I can do my changes. So it's a great way of doing that. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go to my form properties. So the form properties is what it says here. You can add scripts to the form events. So the form property is where I do it. Now there's already one for the activity feeds, so that's out of the box Microsoft. But then what I want to do is I want to add my own personal library that I did. So I'm going to go to the Add button. Then over here it lists all the libraries that I can access. So then you have to find the custom one. So again, you can sort by name, and you can see all the news. So anything that starts with the letter new will be the ones that I created. You can also create a new library on the fly. So originally where I went to settings, administration, customization, configure the sort, configure the site, you can actually do the same thing from the form that you're on. So it saves time. Basically what I wanted to do is show you there are multiple ways of adding these libraries. So I'm going to say new. Actually not new, sorry. New is where I'd add it. I'm basically going to select the library. And so now that I can see I've got my libraries in here, and you can have, I think, 99 libraries within the system. I've never really gone past 5, but I believe you could probably get up to about 99 before it starts to get crazy. The more libraries you have, you just have to be very careful, because my experience with Microsoft is some libraries can cross. So we just have to be a little careful about how you do some of this stuff. So the first thing is, now that I've got my library in here, I can actually utilize it. But I also have to tell it what I want to do. So over here we have event handlers. Remember when I talked about in the page, it talked about the onload, the onsave. So over here I've got an onload. And then the next one I've got an onsave. So each one is differently. So this is a way of doing your onload and your onsave. Within your controls, you can actually do your onChange events. So if I had an onChange event, I can do it here. I'll also show you another way of doing it. So now that I've got my library in here, let's take a look at the code that I've currently written, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So basically what I do is best practices for us is I put comments at the top. I want to know the date it was modified, who it was for, and some description about what it was. You can also keep track of the modifications, so you can put date and time, the last time I modified. Why is that important? A great way of doing that is, let's say you have consultants like Affiliated wanting to help. I can put comments in there, so that way when you guys get more experience and you want to manage the system, you'll be able to see and you add your own comments to the header record. And it's a great way of keeping track of all the history that's changed within here. If you use a team foundation or a source control system, you'll have your revisions there. So both ways work, but it's just a great way of putting comments in here, so if other people are looking at this or want to change it, they can see what you did, and if you need to roll back, you'll know what things to take away. Always when I write these things, I will create a function, and a function within CRM is something that is used in here because it's basically managing the functions. So a function is basically a piece of code that can be reused over and over again. I will create an onSave and an onLoad. You can call it whatever you do, but I always call mine form_onSave and form_onLoad. So that way I know that, this is exactly what's going to be used on load, which is when CRM loads the system, and on save. Then over here, I will create functions for the tasks that I want done. The reason why I put them in functions is, let's say I want to reuse it, but I don't want to have to cut and paste and type this over 10 times. I want to create a single function that can be used in several different places. So it can be used on the onChange event, it can be used on the onSave, it can be used on the onLoad. I do it one time, one place, easy to manage, easy to manipulate. And again, if you talk to a lot of developers, they'll consider it the lazy approach because they don't want to do as much work as they want to, or you can say it's the most efficient way of doing it. Either way. So the next thing we do is naming conventions. So when you're talking about your functions, try to name it in something that makes sense. If you start using X, Y, and Z and you're asking someone else to help you, they're going to have absolutely no idea what X, Y, and Z is. So try to name it in a way where you can look at it 6 months later and say that's what it's doing. Because what happens is you're going to write the JavaScript, you're going to spend days, weeks working on this, it's going to be beautiful. Then your boss is going to come to you and say, I would like to do it this way now. Then you have to go back and look at all that code. If you're using X, Y, Z, and I and all the other letters in the alphabet, you're not going to know exactly what it's doing. So again, name your functions in a way that makes sense where you can read it later or someone else can take over. So when you want to write comments, you'll add the 2 slashes. Then you put a comment above there. Then over here, it'll talk about what's the function name. This is called a getValueFromCRM field. I guarantee you're going to look at this and say, I'm actually getting a value from CRM. Then over here, it's going to say a variable, getSubject. Well, maybe I'm getting my subject. If I'm going to set a subject, you can say setSubject. So again, naming convention is a great way of doing it. So the first function is going to talk about getting a value from CRM. So I'm going to remove this information, and what I'm going to do is I've got my onSave and my onLoad. I'm going to call this function called getAValue from CRM, and I'm going to put it on my onLoad. So basically what I always do is I'll copy, Control-C, Control-V, and I'll add it here. I'll put my parentheses and a semicolon or semicolon at the end. Now, for JavaScript, this is not required. I do it just because of my programming background, and it knows and it tells me that I've ended something. But it is not required, so if you look at examples on the web, you'll see some that have it, some that don't. I always add it. It's just habit, and I just continue to do it. So now I've got my information in here. So I'm going to copy this information. So a lot of times, again, I keep it on my desktop. I'll make my changes. I'll copy it, and then I'll move it over here to my library because I can just pick on my library, and I can do Edit, and then I can Control-A, Control-V, and I've now basically overwritten what I've put in there. There is no version control in CRM, so you have to keep your own version control. So if you want to keep a copy of what was before you made a change, you'll have to make a copy of that information somewhere on your desktop. Or if you use a source control, you'll have all the iterations before that. But CRM has no rollback functionality, so as soon as I click the OK button, it's now overwritten it, and I don't know what it was before. So then, now that I've got this information in there, I need to say on my onLoad. So I'm going to click the Add button and say, okay, what's my function? Over here, it's going to give you a list of your libraries. I'm going to do the drop down and say, what library do I want? So then I can say form on load. Now, remember when I talked about doing the parentheses? This is where it is. Now, in the beginning, when I first did this many years ago, I would say, okay, I need to copy and paste this information here with the parentheses. Microsoft does not like those parentheses here. So you'll need to remember, when you're putting in a function, it's just the name of the function. Microsoft takes care of everything else after that. Now, I will show it to you, and I will show you how it gets broken, and then I'll show you how to fix it. So I'm going to add that information. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click OK, because you can see that it's now in there. My enabled is true. Now, the enabled true functionality within the event allows you can create all your functions, but then you can turn it off. Because sometimes you're going to add it, and you're like, well, I just need to turn it off temporarily, but I don't want to have to retype in all that information. You can enable it or disable it. So if it's disabled, it won't fire, but if it's enabled, it will fire. So you can actually add all this code in here. You can work on it during the day, and then after 5 o'clock, when they say, go for it, you can actually log into CRM, do the enable button, and it's actually live at that point. So it's just a great way of controlling what things are on and off, and you can leave your function name in there so you don't have to retype it in later. So I'm going to click OK. Just like CRM, when you're manipulating fields, you have to save it and you have to publish it. If you do not save it and you do not publish it, it will not take your code into effect. And then what happens is, after I'm published, this form editing field, I leave open. I do not close it. And the reason why is because it saves me from having to go back, hit the customize, hit the form editor. It saves click, and if you make a mistake, you can quickly go back into the system and turn things off. Because when you're dealing with JavaScript, the only way to really test it is to actually do it on the environment. Unless you create a brand new form and you do your changes in there as a testing environment. So then I will close my screen. I'm going to open up my lead, and it should break. Okay, now, does everyone see that I don't have a form up on my editing thing? I've lost my save and close, my qualify button, everything within here. So if you ever get a request that says, I would like to remove the ribbon bar for everybody, this is a great way of doing that for you. It's a hidden Easter egg within the CRM code. The reason why I'm showing this to you is so you know not to do this later. I found out accidentally, and I've been trying to tell as many people as possible. I've even gone to Microsoft and reported it as a bug, but they really haven't done anything with it yet. So for you guys, don't do it. And also, why I also keep this form up and running is because when I accidentally did this the one time, I'm like, how do I get back to the Customize tab because it's gone? I would have to go back to Settings, Administration, Customize, Web Resource. It was sort of a pain. So again, I always left this open. So now I'm going to go back to my form properties. I'm going to go back to my edit. So I'm going to edit this information. You can also double click on it if you like. I'm going to get rid of my parentheses, and then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to hit OK. Save and publish. You'll get tired of that. I wish they would also add a save and publish button that would do it at the same time, but it doesn't. If you publish before hitting save, it will publish the last time it's saved, not what you want it to save. So always be prepared on that. So then I'm going to open it up again and be like, look, my ribbon bar is back. So don't do the parentheses. So now what I've done is the very first piece of code is I prompted an alert. So let's bring up the code and I'll show you what it's doing. So the very first thing, it says get a value from CRM. So the very most common thing you're going to do in CRM is get a value. So I've told it to do subject. You're probably looking at the form going, where is subject? I don't see subject anywhere. But what you do see is topic. Within CRM, you have 3 fields. Then they all reference the same. So you have a form label, you have a field label, and then you actually have what's the field in the database, and that is the field that you have to write your JavaScript code against. Not the label, not the field name, the value field in the database. I'll show you how to get that as well too. So this piece of code basically says I want to get the value and I'm going to set it to get subject. And then I'm going to show an alert. This is the most common way to debug in CRM, is just to throw a bunch of alerts on the screen and verify the value you're getting. So this is one way. There is another way through IE 8 and above. So as I can see, I've thrown an alert. I've got my subject is exactly what I see here. I click OK and it's done. If I go back to my form lead and I say topic. If I see the word topic here and I see the word topic there, it's kind of hard to see, but it is great out behind there. I'm going to go to change properties. Here's my label. So this is the label on the field. If I go to details and I go to edit, it's thinking. Okay, so then I get my display name. So that's the second field. Now, the name where it says subject, this is the name that you pull for your JavaScript file. It's not the topic, it's not the label, it's the name. So the name can be completely different. So when you're writing JavaScript files, you can't go by what's on the form. You have to go by behind the scenes. And it's always no spaces, no special characters. And when you create custom fields, it will be new underscore whatever the name is. Now, if you accidentally misspell it, you will have to continue to have that misspelling in all your JavaScript code, even though the display name is spelled correctly. Or if you repurpose a field like Street 1, you want to call it company, you need to know in your JavaScript file to look at Street 1, that's now your company name. So if you repurpose fields, you still have to look at whatever the name is in here. And then when also you look at this, this will also tell you the type. And the type will actually determine what values come back, because text fields are text, pick list values are different, option set value or radio button values are different, lookups are different. So knowing the type is also a good way of knowing what you can do with the data. So now that I know that information, so a lot of times you're going to know this as you start using it, but you're going to have to deep dive into figuring out what that name is, because that's what's actually utilized for JavaScript. So there, that's my name, and I'm getting my value. So basically the very first thing we're doing on the onload is get a value. Now I want to set a value. So the next function I've created called set value to CRM field. Now what I want to do is in my address 1 city, I'm going to set the value to Dublin, because that's where I am today and that's honestly where I live. So then, now that I've got my function in here, if you look at the code up here, I'm not calling it anymore. Just because you create a function doesn't mean it's going to be executed in CRM. So now I basically have to say, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to add my parentheses, my colon at the end. So now on my form, it's going to execute this function, and then it's going to execute this function. So it's going to do them sequentially. So also, the order that you put these functions is important. So if you have certain ones that need to be done first, you put them at the top. The other ones will be done at the end. So again, the order does help as well. So I'm going to copy, paste. I'm going to add my form properties. I'm going to cut, paste, edit. I'm going to save. I'm going to publish. All right, so I'm going to close it. I'm going to go back to my leads. All right, my JavaScript, again, popped open as a window. If I look at the city says La Virgen, if I can pronounce that correctly. So if you live there, I apologize. you notice it hasn't executed yet. The reason why is because the pop-up window is open. Remember when I talk about the order of your functions? It won't execute this one until I hit OK. So I hit OK. Now it has automatically changed to city to be Dublin. So this can be useful in ways where you can actually manipulate the data and do things that you want to. A lot of it is, when some people are saying, I want to copy my mailing address to my physical address. You can actually do a checkbox that says copy it. It will take all this information, it will get the values, and then it will set the values on the fly. So that is a pretty common one that's used. That can be used within JavaScript. So the next thing we see is I'm going to show you how to do the on-change event toggles. So what I want to do is I'm going to hide and show tabs. So I've created a tab, but you can't see that tab. Based off when you hit the yes, no information here, I'm going to toggle it back and forth. This can be done to say if you have divisions or if you have business units within your environment that needed to see information, you can toggle it back and forth based off of drop-down list. When the thing loads for the very first time, you can do things based off that. So that's what this on-change event is. And again, naming convention, I try to name it in a way where I will understand it. Then I'm basically going to say I'm going to get my attribute, which is my hide and show tab. I've already gone through and I figured out what the name's going to be. So it's new underscore because it's a custom field. And then over here I'm going to do an if statement. If this value is equal to false, which is no, because it's a Boolean variable, true, false, then show the tab.
Got a question.
Yep.
Hide/show on tabs when hidden on the form. Will it hide also when printed the form? A little bit rough on the
Okay.
syntax there, but
Let's find out. The question was, when you hide and show fields on the form and you try to print it, will it actually show? So what we'll do is we'll do File, Print Preview, and I've actually gotten one hidden, so we will see. If it will scroll down, Details, and the answer is it will not show up when you try to print. So basically what it's saying is if you hide a field and you try to do a file print, it won't show on that printed field. Now, those fields will still be in CRM, and you can do an advanced find, and you can dig, and you can dive, and you can find that information. So they're not hidden based off security roles. What we're doing is we're hiding it from the view. Now, if you need to hide things from security roles, you're going to do field level security, and that's a different topic, but it is possible. So we've got our on-change event, and I think I've got this backwards, so sorry. We'll fix it. So show is going to be true, hide is going to be false, hide a tab,
says, what about hiding sections which have fields on it? Will that show on printing the form?
No, when anything is hidden on the form, it will not show it on the screen. So when you hide something, it's hidden from the form at that time. The field, again, they can see it through advanced find, but on the form, when they do a print, they see it, it is gone, they can't access it. Okay. All right, so we're about at a 10-minute mark, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little faster, but again, I'll be happy to give you all this source code so you guys can review it, because I still want to show you the phone number one, so we're going to go over this. So the next one is showing and hiding a tab. You can see we're getting the page get attribute. Now we're getting the UI tab, get tab, demo tab, set visible, true, false. Over here, we talked about the update read only. So I'm going to get the attribute, I'm going to set the value, and I'm going to set submit always. what I've done is right here under the country region code, I have set it to be a read-only. So again, my best practice is always add this to every single time you're going to set a value. Now, I know I didn't put it up here because I was doing a demonstration, but normally whenever time I set a value, I will just automatically put this in here because it will save you later. The next one over here talks about lead source control on change. A lot of times when people put in other, so it says other, you have no idea what the other is. So what I've done is I've created a new field that's hidden that will only show up when they select other. And then a new field is up, and I set the requirement level to be required. And anytime you do an if-else statement, you always have to have your else statement to put it back to normal. So this now sets the visible to false, so don't show it, and set the requirement to none, because even if you have a field that's hidden and it's required, it could require you to hit the save button. So you always got to put it back to normal. So it doesn't automatically put it back to normal when you overwrite it. So we're going to go through, I'm going to demo this for you, and I'll show you what it does. So I'm going to put everything here. Put this in here. And everything else is good. So I'm going to edit, paste. So now I got my form on loads. I'm good. Now I've got to do my on change events. So I'm going to copy it because, again, if you mistype something, it won't work. So I always like to copy it from the code. So I'm going to put on my hide and show tab. You can double click or you can go to change properties. I'm going to go to my events tab. When you're on a field, this is where you get to do your on change event. So you want to trigger to do something. So I'm going to click the add button. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to select the library name. I'm going to click OK, and then OK. So now I've got that in there. I'm going to add one more all the way down to my lead source. I'm going to change the properties. I'm going to add an event. I'm going to go down to my lead source on change. I'm going to add. I'm going to paste. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK. So now I've got my two libraries that are my on change event. But again, it's one library for the leads. So it's very easy to manage and manipulate. Save and publish. Close my form. It's publishing, so it's thinking. All right, now it's done. So let's see if everything works. All right. So now my pop-up comes up. I've override Dublin, and there's that USA that I just added. So over here, I've got my update a read-only field. I now overrode it. Originally it was u.s. Now it's just USA. Now I'm going to hide and show a field. So I hit yes. Up here, my demo tab comes up. So now this is all the field information that I have in my demo tab. If I hit no, it's gone. So it's dynamically showing and hiding tabs. It's a very cool feature for information that you want to show. The next thing that I did was my lead source. I put in other. Now there's no field. There's now a field. So I can hide and show fields. I can hide and show tabs. Now that I've put other in there and I try to hit the save button, you must provide a value for lead source other. So now when somebody selects other, I want to know what they put in there. So I've set my requirement level to be required. So now, because of the asterisk there, they have to fill in something before they can hit the save button. And again, this will continuously pop open until I turn it off. So now we've got about 5 minutes. So I'm going to quickly show you the phone number editing and how that can be utilized. So I'm going to go to my form properties. I'm going to say add. I'm going to say new. We'll call this common library. It'll be a JavaScript file. It'll be in English. I'm going to browse this time. I'm going to go to my thumb drive, my common functions main library. I'm going to hit save and close. I'm going to hit OK. That's another way of adding the library on the fly. So now this is a library that can actually be used in leads, accounts, and contacts. So I'm going to open it up. And if you look at this, it's going to look a little different from the other one. So what this one's doing, there's my phone number. It's getting it. I'm getting rid of anything that's not a number. So even if you put ABC in there, I get rid of it, and it's basically anything that's got a number in there, unless it's past a certain length, like extension. So then I'll know what the phone number is, what the extension is. I'm able to find out if it's a 10 character or 7. If it's a 10, I put the parentheses, and at the tail end, I actually add the extension on it. So I'm going to show you what this does. And if you need help with it, you can always call us. So I'm going to hit OK. And on every phone number within CRM, I'm going to do business phone, home phone, mobile phone. I'm going to add an event. I'm going to add, paste, go to my common library, and then what I'm going to do over here is I'm actually going to pass the execution context as the first parameter. What that means is I'm going to take the information on that field and I'm going to pass it in that function, and then I'm going to reuse it and resubmit it back out. So that's what this function is. You can actually put in parameters in here, and that's going to be more of an advanced class if we dive into that. Let's save and publish. Because again, you don't publish, you don't see it. Sort of gets tiring, but when you're doing this in the beginning, you're going to go through stages. You're going to go through and you're going to practice. So you're going to do a lot of saving, you're going to do a lot of publishing. Do it in small stages, because if you're doing it in large stages, you may not know what the bug is, and it may take you a very long time to do it. So here's the business phone. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to hit tab. Of course, didn't like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6. Extension is undefined. Nice. Again, gotta love testing.
We don't have to send you that code.
Yeah, it was working. You know how it goes. So as you can see, it auto put the tab in there. So if I did 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and like that. Okay, so again, I'll fix it before sending it out there. But basically what it does, it puts the parentheses, it puts a space, it does the dash, and it adds an extension at the end if you wanted to. Nothing's prone to, So if you did 555-555-1234, extension 101, it'll actually format it to whatever you guys want it to be. And actually this is really important if you have phone software that's doing a call pop and they require it to be a certain way. You can utilize this code, and we'll clean it up and send it to you. So, but basically that's what I have regarding JavaScript. I know we only have a few minutes left, and I apologize. And I was hoping to give you more minutes, but again, I will stay later if anybody has any questions throughout this. And then basically we will owe you some documents at the end. And feel free.
All right. Thank you very much, Stephen. I did receive some questions during the event, so I know some folks were, asked questions as they arose. If there are any last-minute questions, please do feel free to enter them into the question box in your GoToMeeting panel there. Otherwise, we will go ahead and sign off. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and hey, we all have real jobs to get to. So, going once, last-minute questions. Going twice. Thank you all very much for participating.
Also, there's one more thing. If anyone's interested in learning more about JavaScript, please contact us and we can set up some training individualized for your company, or we can do a very large training session that's sort of more of a generic. But what we talked about today was from a beginning to a mid-level. I can go into a more advanced, which talks about using the fetch utility. I can change fields dynamically on the fly. We can do lookup variables. There is a lot more to cover. So if you're interested in going to the next level of JavaScript, please let us know. Contact Jim, and we'll arrange something.
Yes, absolutely. So we are we are strong believers in teaching people to fish, not just giving fish. So we reflect that in developer training sessions that we frequently offer to our customers. So if that's something that would interest you further, or if you have a project that requires some customization, you'd like us to take care of it for you, of course, please do let me know. And anybody who's interested in any of the materials from today, the link to the session or the quick reference guide, again, it's Jim Manning. You can see my email address there. Please do let me know. Thank you once again.